I've been to several plays in the last couple of weeks. Last week I went and saw Lion in Winter at the Playhouse. It's all about Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, and they blustered and bullied each other and had kind of a war going on, and there were 3 sons who wanted the crown, and they all ranted and raved and loved one another extravagantly and hated one another passionately, and it was all the same people loving and hating each other. And as I was leaving, I was thinking, this is why we do this. We go to movies, we go to plays, we listen to country western songs that talk about lives transformed by love and by God. And we do that because we need the catharsis. Aristotle talked about catharsis one time as being a very important product of a culture, that if somebody wants to rule over people, they need to find a way to give the people catharsis. This is where you go to the movie and you cry for somebody else. You cry because somebody's found a true love and you haven't. You cry if you see somebody lifting someone up out of poverty or despair and you wish you could do the same thing. We laugh at things that happen on the movie screen. We laugh and we cry, and it's really not our lives we're laughing and crying about. It's someone else's lives we're laughing and crying about. The other piece of going to the theater was the week before that. I went and saw Legacy of Light with Catherine Donovan in there, and Tiffany, one of our new choir members who isn't here today, got to speak this wonderful speech, and I remembered as an actress that was one of the things I loved to do, was learn the words of something else, and those words became part of my life. There are scenes from different plays that I've done over the years that I could still do on the spot because they have become part of who I think I am. And so in that way, actors are kind of like high priests. What we do is we take the information about living that we know about in this culture, and we transport it, we translate it, and we make it make sense, and then you get to have the catharsis. So it's all kind of wonderful and good and everything, but my whole idea is that we're not really supposed to just live our lives in catharsis, that we're supposed to live our lives completely, totally, fully each moment of each day, and that's hard to do, especially in a world that offers so much catharsis to us all the time. But there are 3 different things that I think might be helpful as we try to move on to perfection, as John Wesley talked about. One of them is that we need to take risks. The other is that we need to give everything we have. And the third thing is that we need to receive God's unconditional love. Ruth took risks in her life. She was just a poor girl from a village in Moab somewhere, and she married into an alien family, different folks with a different religion, and her husband died. Her father-in-law died first, and pretty soon it was just 3 widows hanging out together. And the mother-in-law decided that she needed to go back home because there was food finally again in Judah. And so she needed to go back home because that's where her kin were. That's where the people who were able to redeem her from poverty lived. And so she went back home, and her daughters-in-law originally went with her, but the other one went back. And Ruth said, "No, I'm going to go with you all the way. In fact, I will follow your gods. In fact, I will be buried in your place. Not even death is going to separate me from you and your life and your God." And so they went back to Bethlehem, and they lived there. And this guy named Boaz was a near neighbor, a near kin to them. And the word kin actually in the Bible means someone who is able to redeem someone. So that if you fall into poverty and you need to sell yourself as a servant to other people in order to be able to live, then you have kin who can redeem you. They can buy you back. They can say, you know what, I'm going to pay your wages this year. You come and stay at my place and do the work around my house. And it was the law that in 6 years, if someone did that for you, they had to be set free. So you could be redeemed by your kin. So Boaz was a near relative, but he wasn't the nearest relative. And the part that wasn't read is about how after Ruth laid at his feet to show him that that she would marry him, he said, you know, this is really cool because you didn't go after the young men, because you're young and beautiful, and I'm kind of old, and I've been a bachelor for a long time, and nobody seems to think I'm anything special, and you're offering yourself to me as my wife. And so he accepted her. He said, but I have to go and sit at the city gates and see if this other near kin will take you instead. So he had a conference, called the guy over who was the near kin, and then 10 others, and they had a little court thing happening. And Boaz said, you know, Naomi came back with this woman Ruth, and she has all this property from her husband and her sons, and I am going to take it, but you are nearer than me. Would you like the property? And the man said, yeah, I would. And then Boaz said, of course, Ruth the Moabite is part of the deal, and any children that you have with her will actually belong to her dead husband. And that's the name that will carry on. And the man said, you know, I have an inheritance of my own, and I don't really want to mess that up. So he said no. And then Boaz married Ruth, and she became the grandmother of King David of Israel, the king who got all the 10 tribes of Israel together again and made them one place, who put all of the cultural, monetary, political, military might in one place, and he ruled for 40 years, and there was peace in Israel when he ruled. Ruth took a chance. She took several chances. She left her family and went with Naomi, first of all. And then she went and worked on Boaz's fields, and was honorable and hardworking and didn't stop for anything. And when she was fed by Boaz, she ate until she was satisfied, and she took the leftovers home to her mom. And Boaz was so intrigued by her character that's why he decided, you know what, I think I will marry you. I think you will be a good wife and a good person to have in this community. And so her taking risks led the way for Jesus even, because he's of that same line. To give everything you have is something that the woman with the 2 coins did, and something that's really hard for us to do all the time. When I moved to California, I was 38 years old. I was still married to my then husband. The marriage was going from bad to worse. He said to me one day, "Why, are you afraid I'll stab you while you're sleeping?" And I thought, no, I hadn't really thought about it until just this moment. But that's how it was kind of going. And God spoke to me and told me, get out of there. And so I did. And I took my daughter, and she was 11, and I had $70 in my hand and $800 in the bank, and I moved to California with my daughter. We stayed 5 weeks with my big brother. He's 11 years older than me. I really didn't know him after he went into the Marine Corps when I was in 2nd grade. But he graciously let us stay in his house for 5 weeks, and then he said, you know, you need to take a leap of faith, rent an apartment. So I borrowed $1,500 from his wife, and I rented a $700 a month apartment after having paid $149.57 a month on a mortgage in Michigan.